Greetings, friends! We are officially at the start of winter and just days away from the end of 2020. It's hard to believe. It's been a crazy, wild year.
Sure has.
Around the world and here on our homestead too. It's been a really busy year for us. Even more so than normal in some ways.
Exceptional surprises.
Yeah, some of that too. And even the past couple days have been no exception to that. It's been pretty busy, wild and crazy here on our homestead.
Yeah.
And recently we've been making a number of upgrades, as you all have been aware, like our mini split system that we've installed, as well as redoing the outside of our yurt, going to a more permanent outside.
Adding windows.
Yeah, and throughout our homestead journey, we've pinched pennies probably as far as you can pinch those pennies and just trying to make it work. And that's just part of what you have to do to make it work sometimes when you're trying to pursue something worthwhile. And we've been doing that. And along the way, we've just been making do with used furniture, used this, and just trying to make it work.
And there's nothing wrong with that at all.
But those are some of the sacrifices that you may have to make in your homestead journey, like we have with ours. And one of the goals that I've had here recently is to as we've been upgrading, to actually upgrade our couch, because we've had this couch for I don't know how long, and it's a beast.
Yeah.
It has holes in
Almost
it,
6 years.
and we were covering the holes in the fabric with a towel that was similar color, just so that way we could still have a couch and look somewhat nice. But it's been well overdue to move on from this beast. So we recently purchased a new couch, which we've never bought any new furniture
ever.
before.
That was our first piece of new furniture.
So that was pretty exciting to go and as a family and buy a couch. It was like, whoa.
And we wanted something that we could all sit on comfortably and sit as a family, you know, watch a movie night, those things like that. And we wanted to be comfortable as a family.
So we bought our new couch, but it wasn't able to be delivered right on the day that we bought it. So a couple days later was going to be the day that it was delivered.
Yeah.
So that morning we were pushing out the old beast, and before we pushed the old beast out, we actually did some warm-up exercises. I wanted to make sure I was warmed up and ready to move that beast out.
Because that thing is heavy.
Yep, Micah was warming up with me. He was doing his little warm-ups too. So after we did our warm-ups, you helped me push the old beast outside. And it's still sitting outside right now because I'm not 100% sure of what to do with the monstrous thing. But a little bit after that, the new couch arrived. And when the delivery guys looked at us when I said, all right, don't bring it in our house yet, we want to leave it outside, they kind of looked at us like, why in the world
what do you want to do?
We can take it inside for you. But there was reasons why you didn't want us to bring it in right away.
Yes. And that is because a lot of new furniture off gases, and it's all the chemicals that are in the fabrics. And I mean, I knew that was going to be an issue bringing it in. And that day it was pretty outside, but it was cold. So we just uncovered it, and so our cats wouldn't get on it. I covered it with some sheets and just let it sit out there for several hours during the day, just to let those initial gases off gas and not in our house.
Yeah, that way just some nice airflow and the sunlight can kind of just let things just kind of clean it out a little bit, so we're not bringing all bunch of new toxin smells right into our house after just unwrapping the thing.
That's right. That's right.
And at the end of the day, after we rearranged some stuff in the house, we put the legs on the couch and brought it in. And it's so nice to have a new couch that we all can enjoy.
And we can all sit on it and fit on it and not be all like cramped up sardines sitting on the couch.
Yeah, it feels so good. I'm so glad that we were able to do that. And you also got 2 other pieces of new furniture here recently.
Yes, yes. I have desperately needed a new desk for a long time because I really didn't have a real desk. So I got a desk, and then I also got a new bed frame that raises your bed up, so there's a lot more storage underneath your bed, and that's what we need here is storage. So I'm super excited that I got those put together and put in our room.
I'm so excited for you about the desk because you do pretty much 99% of the video editing, and having a place where you can actually do that, I'm so glad you were able to make that work and have an area that works for you.
Yes, and I have storage, and I don't have to have people rifling through all my stuff, and then I can't find my own things, and then I get really angry. So
yeah, and the old desk was just one of those fold-out tables with plywood on top of it. It was one of those situations where we just make do once
Making
again.
do.
That's what you gotta do sometimes. Make do what you gotta do.
But I'm excited about my desk and the drawers that I bought.
So that's some of the things that we have going on inside our house. And outside, even though things are slowing down with it being colder and the days are getting shorter, it's still been pretty busy. Recently, I got my flat-free tire for our lawn tractor recently. And man, I love it. I definitely recommend it for any of you who have lawn tractors. Go with the flat-free ones. They have them just for the front tires, but that makes a world of difference of not having to pump up a tire each time, because you're dealing with flat tires constantly from just various items that you're running over.
They're a little more expensive, but well worth the investment.
Totally worth it. So definitely recommend that. Also been harvesting some things around the homestead as well in the garden. We've had root crops that we've been harvesting from, as well as some greens. So we've been doing that. We also have been, we just processed 30 chickens.
Yep.
And we had some friends of ours come over to learn how to do that. People this year have been more inclined and more interested in learning how to process animals, and when we can, we try to share those opportunities with friends. And
that's right.
even a week ago, we processed ducks for the first time.
Yep.
And we were also able to enjoy a nice duck meal that you made from one of the ducks.
Yes, I just went online and found a recipe, and I roasted a duck. Now, it did take a long time, but it turned out really, really well.
It did. It was really good. Even though I was only able to eat a couple bites, just because of the issues I've been dealing with my gallbladder. I've really been cutting my fat more and more. Probably not in a good way, but even just those few bites of the duck, even though it was really, really good, it did seem to set off my gallbladder, and it even affected me the next day when we were processing those 30 chickens. And it kept building up, and the pain just kept getting worse and worse. And at that end of the day, after we processed the chickens, it was getting to be really, really bad.
Yeah, he was not feeling too good.
And then all that night, I don't think I slept at all. It was just constant pain. It got to the point where it was early in the morning, and I was like, you know what? I was contacting my doctors, like, and I think I need to go to the ER. This is bad. On a scale of 1 to 10, the pain was like 8, 9. It was just like up there. And I've been doing things for quite some time. So I think the first initial pain that I had from gallbladder was like in October. I've just been doing things, really trying to work with it, doing the best I could, but it was just not going away this time.
No, it wasn't. So he woke me up that morning, and I had been up with him some that night, but I got a couple hours of sleep, and he said, I think I need to go to the ER.
Yeah. So we were heading off to the ER. Pain was up there. I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to deal with the ride over there. And as we were getting ready to head off to go to the ER, Sayla was giving me a hug and was crying and praying for me, and the pain did lessen when she did that. So I was like relieved. I was like, I feel like I can take this ride over there now.
Yeah.
So we rode over there. Our minister met me over there before we actually went into the ER, just to be anointed and pray over me and ask for healing again. We met with him before.
Yep.
And he did it again. And after that, we decided to head on into the ER. I got checked in, and I was in some pain, and we're sitting in there in the ER, and thankfully you were able to be in there with me while I was sitting in the ER. I wasn't just sitting in there alone.
Because I wasn't sure they were going to let me in.
No, I was so thankful that they did. And it was actually the ER that my doctor recommended me go to. He felt I was going to have a good experience there, and I wouldn't have to wait long, so I'm definitely glad he recommended that place.
Yeah.
So we went there, and then waited for the time to come to get my ultrasound for them to check on me.
They did give you some morphine before
Yes,
that.
they did. They did give me some pain medicine, thankfully.
Yeah.
But even the pain medicine, they were strong. It was strong.
It was morphine, so yes, it's very strong.
It took the pain from an 8 to a 9 to about a 4 or 5. So I was still in pain, even with the meds. So
yeah.
It was some significant pain. So it did help that. I was able to bear with it a little bit more. So they pushed me back to do the ultrasound, and they were doing the ultrasound, and this lady wasn't like super bubbly with personality, so I'm like getting more scared as I'm in there. It's like, what is she seeing? What is she seeing? And I'd ask her things that she really didn't quite answer quite fully, so I'm like, oh boy. And then she's like scanning down there at the liver, spent a lot of time there. I'm like, please don't let it be my liver. Please don't let it be my liver. So we got done with the ultrasound, and I'm waiting for the doctor to come back in, and he was like, liver looks good.
Yeah.
you got some gallstones, big time. So
Yeah.
we're gonna need to get you out of here and get you to the hospital for surgery. I'm like,
Which was a big surprise for us.
Sure was. It was
yeah.
the last thing that I was wanting to deal with throughout this whole process. But I had come to the point where I was at peace with it and understood that that was what needed to happen. The pain was just to the point where it was totally unbearable.
And we had done everything else. You had changed your diet to be super strict. We've, you had been to your doctor. We've been to our homeopath. We talked to our herbalist. You drastically changed everything, and you were still having these things.
Whatever I could find to do, I really tried to do it. I was working, like you said, and I was working with 2 doctors that were giving me advice. So. Natural-oriented doctors.
Yeah.
So I was seeking God first, and I always do that. So I really felt that I did what I needed to do.
Yeah.
So after they did the ultrasound and then the ambulance came, that was actually the last time I was able to see you. So they carted me off, took me for a ride in an ambulance, my first ride in an ambulance to the hospital, and I was
a non-emergent one.
The sirens weren't going or anything. So got to the hospital. And then I was just sitting in surgery prep for I don't know how long. And I must say, I didn't not like that. It was kind of like I was isolated. I really couldn't hear the nurses. They were far off. There were not really people around me. It was not. So I was like lonely, exhausted, in pain, and I hadn't eaten in probably 36 to 40 plus hours because I really didn't eat much before just because the pain that I was in, and we were doing the processing, and I was in pain while we were processing the chicken. So it was not a lovely experience at all. And I got a couple nurses that didn't check on me regular. So I was like texting you. I was like,
he texted me one time. I followed, I went and got me some lunch, and then I went to the hospital, and I was waiting in the surgery area and the waiting room. And thankfully, I'm glad I left his phone with him. And so he had his phone, and he texted me. He's like, could you please have one of the nurses come check on me because my pain medicine is wearing off. So I went up to the receptionist and I said, could you have a nurse go check on him because his pain medicine is wearing off. And what had happened is I think he was actually in a triage area before pre-op because they were overrun that day with surgeries. They had like 16 add-on surgeries, and I think 8 were full-on emergencies. So since he was stable, he kind of got bumped to the bottom of the list, and then he was kind of put in the back.
And that's okay. I could overhear one time where it sounded like one of the situations was definitely life-threatening. I'm like, I can deal with it. Mine's not life-threatening. Go ahead. And there was another lady that was, I'm like, I'm a gentleman. Go ahead, let her go first. But it was interesting.
So we got to the hospital. I think I got to the hospital around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we had gotten at the ER that morning at about 9:30. So 9:30 to 2 o'clock, and then they said they were going to work him into surgery, and I kept looking for his number up on the board, and it was never there, and it was never there. And then it got to be about 5 o'clock, and then it was 7 o'clock.
And all this time I'm back there, I'm by myself, texting Lacie when I can, not really able to sleep, asking for pain meds here and there when I needed it. And there was one time that I really needed it, that it went a little bit longer than it should have of not getting it. And I'm like, okay, any minute now they're going to be getting me ready, putting the anesthesia in me so I can go have my surgery. Well, that never came.
No.
Just hang in there. Maybe it's getting ready to come now. I know it is. Oh, didn't come again.
And then it kept getting later and later. So at 7 o'clock, they shut the doors to the surgery center. And if I were to leave, I'd have to leave through the main entrance, and they probably wouldn't have let me back in the building. So I just stayed, and because I was thinking, oh, soon he's gonna have surgery, soon. And it just kept getting later and later and later. And I think I finally got a call from the nurses at I think 11:45 that you were taking you back to pre-op to go back to surgery. And Yeah. I mean, I'd had a few calls before then just to say he's still back here, but
yeah. But one of the last nurse that I had was a really, really nice nurse.
Yeah.
She checked on me a lot. She actually moved me because where I was before, I was like isolated by myself. She's like, you know what? I'm gonna move you closer to where I am, and that way we can have you near us. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And once she moved me into that section, it was like, wow, it's like there's a party over here because I was able to hear the nurses and all their conversations that they had going on. Well, when I was before, it's like, I felt like I was the only person in the hospital.
Yeah. And she was really nice. She came out and talked to me and said how he was doing and brought his hat after he finally took it off. He finally gave up his hat and his socks.
I'm a hat guy.
At the very end. So I was out there, but so I get a phone call like when his surgery started, and then about halfway through, and then the surgeon finally came out at like 1:15 in the morning, and I got to talk to him then.
Yeah, and after the surgery, well, they had originally told me early on that this is one of those surgeries. Pretty much after you have it, you can pretty much go home, and that was my plan. I had that in my mind the whole time that once I have the surgery, I'm out of here. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go back to the land of the living and be home where I need to be. But after surgery, my body said something completely different.
Well, and even the surgeon said as soon as he says, I want to go home, he can go home. So I was like, good, we don't have to wait a whole long time. But his surgeon did say the gallstones, he had 2 big ones about that big, and then he had 2 more small ones. And even though it hadn't been bothering him for a long time, it looked like he had had this issue for a long time because of the thickness of the wall of the gallbladder and everything. So it wasn't just...
And even my bile color wasn't what it should be.
No, it should have been green, and the surgeon said it was like almost clear.
Yeah.
So you weren't even producing bile like you should.
No. And so my body wasn't ready to go home right after surgery. It just crashed. They kind of woke me up. I remember being a little more personable towards the nurses, but then it was like, I was like exhausted, really exhausted.
And anesthesia and heavy pain meds do really make you super groggy. Yeah. So once I saw him, because I talked to a different nurse that brought you out post-op, and she said he's really groggy, and so we went up to your room, and as soon as I saw you, I was like, no, we're sleeping for a few hours before we go anywhere.
Yeah. So after that, after a few hours of sleeping, I woke up, and then I was really ready to go home then. So we waited a little bit, waiting on the nurses to provide a wheelchair. It was taking a little bit longer than it should have, and I'm one of those people, I'm like, all right, I'm ready to get moving. So I was kind of standing up a little bit, and then once we were waiting longer than I wanted to wait, I was like, you know what, Lacie, I'm ready to go home. Let's get out of here.
And he's like, I can walk to the car. I was like, it's like half a mile. You can't walk to the car. So I took him straight downstairs and let him sit in the area that was right there so that I could drive up and pick him up. So I went and walked all the way around and then came back and picked him up.
So back home, recovering, very, very sore, but the pain is nowhere near what it was when I was going through the gallbladder. And even there was 2 nurses that had said that they had gone through the same thing. And they had said they had a C-section and a natural childbirth, and they said the pain that I was going through was worse than that. So I was like, oh boy, then I'm dealing with some serious pain here then if they're equating it to childbirth. But thankfully that pain is gone. Hopefully never again. I in no way intended to lose my gallbladder at all. I think every organ and things that we have in our body is important. We were born with those things, and that we need them. However, I do recognize that there were sins and things that I did in my past that probably contributed to me having those issues. Yeah. And I acknowledge that. And those are things that we have to try to avoid. And I did the best I could these times once I realized I had a gallbladder issue to try to not have to lose my gallbladder. But I know I also had times where I ate too much seed oils. There were times where I would eat whole pizzas by myself. There were times when I did bodybuilding where I would drop, to get ready for a competition, I would drop 50 to 60 pounds or so. And that's not good.
Well, that's hard on your body.
So those are things that I'm like, you know what? I'm not totally guiltless in the matter.
And when you mean sin, you mean bad choices that you made with your diet.
Exactly right. There were just choices that I made with my diet that could be considered gluttonous and just over consuming things. They were just not good choices that I made in my past. Even though I did everything I needed to do, those past sins did have consequences that probably affected what happened. And that's what we have to deal with. I'm sharing these lessons with you all, as well as my kids, so that way you can try to avoid some of these things too.
Yeah.
But I am at peace that I know that I did everything that I could do when I realized the issues that I was dealing with to try to avoid the surgery, but ultimately come to peace that that seems to be God's will for me to have gone through that because of what I did in the past. So just something to think about there. Well, it's time for me to kind of rest. I do need to rest. I'm still recovering.
And don't worry, I'm fussing at him
No.
for not laying down enough and all
Yeah.
that. So you don't have to do that. I'm already on it.
I even have this spot here that feels like you've been stabbed. So it is a reminder that I need to take it easy. And for the next, they told me for what? 2 weeks. I'm not supposed to lift anything over 20 pounds. So thankfully, we've processed the chickens and the ducks,
Yeah.
and a lot of the major stuff are done around the homestead. But all the other little finer details you all are going to have to take on for me.
Yeah.
That would be great. But thankfully, we don't have any big major projects going on. And this is a good time of year for this to happen if it had to happen. It's probably the best time. I can't think of a better time right now, actually.
No, it
So,
wouldn't have been good if it had happened like right before processing the ducks and the chickens. So if it had happened 2 weeks ago, we would have been up the creek.
It would have been a bad situation.
Yeah, I would have
And-
had to call on a lot more people to come and help us, and I know they would.
Yeah.
But it's nice to not have to do that.
And thankfully, we installed things like the mini split system, so they don't have
yeah.
to carry in firewood and things like that. So
Yeah.
the timing worked out great, and it was a blessing on that end. So,
Yeah.
and it's a blessing that I'm still here. So I appreciate that too.
Yes, we like to
So-
keep you around, you know.
And going through this, I want, if there's any of you who have family members that are in nursing homes or in situations where they may have to be isolated, me being in that isolated situation made me think of those kind of people. So make sure you check on them and go the extra mile, and don't just trust anybody to be caring for them totally, but
Yeah.
really try to go the extra mile in making sure they're okay, because
Yeah.
when you're in isolation, that is not a good place to be.
No, it's not.
So, well, that's it for now. I need to go rest, and make sure you check back and how they do with taking care of the chores around here. That's it for now. See you guys later. I need to go rest.
Bye.